Hari Om, everybody. Last week we saw a very, very important verse, important not only to this chapter, but uh, to the entire teaching of the Gita and basically to the entire teaching of Advaita Vedanta. So, what we saw was what was said in the verse was that which is Sat never ever goes away, doesn't lose its existence at any time, and that which is asat never existed. Even though I see it today, it really actually never ever existed. And so the two key words in this verse become sat and asat. We need to understand what sat is and what asat is. To understand anything, to get the knowledge of anything, we need a means. Like if you want to study the stars, we need a telescope. If you want to study minute organisms, we need a microscope. So we need the means. Not only that we need a means of knowledge, but the means also have to be a correct means of knowledge. So in case I want to taste something, then the tongue becomes the primary and the most important means of knowledge. If I want to taste a dish, I cannot look at it and say, oh, that must be very tasty because it looks very pretty or it smells very nice. I cannot say that. The actual knowledge will come only from tasting. Similarly, between the senses and the intellect, the senses are seeing the blue skies, the eyes are seeing the sun coming up on the horizon or setting down in the horizon, but my intellect is telling me that there is neither a sky nor is the sun moving. And in that case, then I have to believe the intellect more than the eyes. And I might say, oh, what a beautiful sunset and what a beautiful sunrise, what a lovely blue sky. I might say that, but inside I know that this is not real. Because why? Because my intellect is telling me otherwise. So there is a means of knowledge which is the eyes, there is a means of knowledge which is the intellect, but in this case the intellect being the stronger means of knowledge, I have to go with the intellect. Similarly, to know what is sat and asat, we have to have a means of knowledge. And yeah, one means of knowledge is the senses. And I do see this world. You cannot deny that, you cannot deny that you're seeing me, or I cannot deny that I'm seeing you or this world. And yes, I am getting experiences. I do experience happiness, experience sadness, jealousy, anger, all kinds of experiences I'm getting. What is to be understood is that does this world have any legs to stand on its own? Like we said, we gave the example of pot and ornament. Can the pot exist without clay, or can an ornament exist without gold, or the metal that which is, maybe it's a silver ornament or whatever, the metal. So the reality, the sat of that pot is the clay and the sat of the ornament is the gold. Why? Because the gold can exist on its own, the clay can exist on its own, but the pot or the ornament cannot exist on its own. Similarly, we have said electricity. In the case of electricity and appliance becomes asat, electricity becomes sat, because electricity can stay on its own, but the appliance cannot function without that electricity. So when the correct means of knowledge are used, then we come to know that this world, can it be sat? Because what is the definition of sat that is given? Sat is that which is always there, which has always been there. So when I look at this body, or even when I look at the world might seem like it is the same, but it has changed. The world has changed. Change is always going on, right? So if I look at my body and if I say that this body is real, then which body is real? Then I start thinking. I'm looking at the body saying, oh yeah, my body is very real. Then when you were born, was that body real? Or as a young person, that body you had, was that real? Or is this body real? Or God knows what body is going to come tomorrow, means this same body is going to change tomorrow. Then is that body real? So that childhood body is not available to me now, and this body will not be available to me in my later years, which means that it was not available at all the time, so it cannot be sat. This is thought process. What I'm seeing is, yeah, it is the same body, it is me only. But thinking, when you think about it, then you come to know that this cannot be sat as per the definition given by Bhagavan Shri Krishna. So this is asat. Also, Sat is that which is available to me, which was available to me in the past, which is available to me in the present, and which will be available to me in the future. Whereas this body was not there before birth, it is there now, and it is not going to be available after death. So how can it be Sat? It cannot be Sat. Now, some of us might think that, yeah, but the experiences are so real. What I felt happy was, it's so real. I felt really happy. I felt really sad. I felt really jealous. And that's very real to me. What is to be understood here, one more subtle point, is that just because it's an illusion doesn't mean it cannot give us an experience. Illusion also gives us experience. And the best example is a movie. You go to a Bollywood movie, you will have a whole range of emotions, starting from happy to sad to jealous to anger to violence to whatever, to fear. If you're going for a horror, fear. So all those feelings, all those thoughts you will experience. But is the movie real? You see death, you see murder in the movie, that you think that actor really died. He's gotten paid money for pretending to be dead, and he's alive and enjoying his money. So just because an experience is happening to me, that doesn't mean that what I am experiencing is real, because illusion can and will give experience. But because it is an illusion, because that itself is false, what I am looking at, the experience that I am getting right now and I'm thinking that it is very, very real is also false. And by false here, I mean mithya. Mithya means that which was not there before and which will not, but it is there today. So the body is there today. I do see the body, I do see the world. But when we apply these means of knowledge, then we come to know, when we think, because it was not available before, it's not available after. The substratum, what is the body, what is the world surviving on, is the existence principle. So that existence principle is what is Sat. Whatever I see is not Sat, is Asat. And Asat is always that which is seen and experienced, unfortunately. It's like that. It's you actually see it with the senses, what is Asat, but what is Sat, you cannot see with the senses. You can never see it with the senses. You will never be able to see it with the senses. So don't even try. Okay, it is to be recognized as your own self. That'll come again. So is this verse pretty clear? And of course, the second line says that the one who knows the difference is a Tattvadarshi Bhi. He is the realized master. Second line is pure, it's pretty straightforward. That the difference between Sat and Asat has to be understood clearly. The one who really understands it, we intellectually have probably grasped it at this point, but whether we can live it, that would be our then journey of remembering this verse and then going by it. So what is the takeaway for us in this is that the main takeaway is, like you might say, okay, so what happens if I come to know that this world is Asat? Don't give that much importance to it. Do you give importance to what you dreamt last night? How much importance do you give once you wake up? While the dream is going on, it's very, very real. Actually, even I was thinking about this because the kind of news that we are getting from India, it's like really, really devastating. It's really disturbing. Very this thing, and that's what also got me thinking. I mean, I almost said, what are you doing, Lord? What are you doing, right? So it gives us an experience, but we have to remember that in the big scheme of things, we don't know what God's plan is. So we have to accept, and then people say, oh, what can we do? Yes, what we can do is pray. That's all that is in our hands right now. So we can pray, we can keep ourselves safe, we can follow all the rules. The people who are not following the rules, absolutely. Like yesterday, a friend of mine was saying, I have no sympathy for them. And I said, yes, I agree. I do not have sympathy for people who are saying that, oh, wearing a mask is infringing on my rights and all those kinds of things. So that is what we do. Any questions so far? Very important verse. Shall we move? Okay. Now, last week, I think Ratnik had a question like, can I talk about Sat? And that is what now Bhagwan also will talk. One more definition of Sat and Asat was that in which my buddhi changes, that is asad buddhi. So the pot, and then I see a cloth, then I see an elephant. So that buddhi has changed, but the isness has remained. That is sad buddhi. So this is a pot, this is a cloth, this is an elephant. Okay, all right. So let's move on. What, because Gurudev also has put what then is that which is ever real? So basically, what is Sat? This is what is now being explained. Avinashi tu tad viddhi yena sarvamidam tatam vinasham avyyasyasya na kaschit kartum arhati. Know that to be indestructible, by which all this is pervaded. None can cause the destruction of that, the imperishable. So avinashi, nasha, destruction, vinasha, visheshena, destruction means absolute destruction, and when you add the prefix, it becomes the opposite. So indestructible, absolutely cannot be destroyed, that is what Sat is. So tu indicates indeed or but. So Sat and Asat were differentiated, but understand that this Sat that I talked about is Avinashi, and Yena Sarvam Idam Tatam. Tat, this Tatam word, Tat is that which pervades. So this pervades everything. The way we explain this pervasiveness is in and through the creation, in and through the creation. So the example is, there is a cloth, and then when the cloth is weaved on that weaving machine, there is a horizontal thread and a vertical and a horizontal thread, right? Because if in a cloth there was only vertical threads, it'll just come apart. So it has to have both to give strength. So there has to be the vertical thread, and then there is the horizontal. So this Sat is described as of the creation of this world. It is the vertical thread, it is the horizontal thread, and if there is anything diagonal, it is the diagonal thread also. That's what is meant by Yena Sarvam Idam Tatam. This world, this Asat is pervaded, is all pervaded. The closest example of pervasiveness is space. Space pervades everything, right? There is space, so we are actually existing in space, and space is there everywhere, if you can imagine. Now, this Sat is even more pervasive than space, because space is actually held in consciousness. See, all these things, all of us are being held in space. Computer, myself, chair, house, my building, my whatever it is there, my car, they are all being held in space. Now imagine space being held in consciousness. So how much more subtle consciousness is. Therefore, space is the first element, they say, that has come from consciousness. So that is the pervasiveness of Sat, in and through the creation, in and through. Now, Vinasham avyay, it is avyaya. Its destruction can never be caused by anybody. So more of this will come. But there is destruction at two levels. Destruction can happen. One is, of course, because the body is made out of parts, a destruction can happen when a thing is a composite of parts. So when we see the body, or when we see a tree or whatever, it has got parts. Body has parts, tree has parts. So destruction can happen because one of the branch can be cut off, or hand can be amputated, or leg can be amputated. So that is one sort of destruction, which is said cannot happen in Sat, because Sat has no parts. Sat is not a composite of parts. Please understand. It is a homogeneous mass of existence. It's like saying, I can cut space. Can you even cut space? Forget consciousness, that is even further away. Even space. And we say, yeah, I cut space because I put up a wall and now this is my space. But the minute you break that wall, the space will merge. So in actuality, you cannot even cut water. Space is even more pervasive, but water is more gross. Water also we cannot really cut. divide. We put a tank, we put a upadhi, which is temporary, because once the tank breaks, that water is going to flow out. So water also cannot be broken. So that's why this Sat, being a homogeneous mass of existence, having no parts, there is no destruction on account of a part being lost. That's number one. The second loss or destruction, you can say, is loss of possession. So in our case, what happens is I have a purse, I have a car, I have jewelry, whatever, and that can get stolen. I can lose it. Doesn't have to get stolen. I can lose it. I can leave my, many times I've left my purse, or people leave their driver's license somewhere or their credit card somewhere. So that sort of destruction can also happen. But this Sat principle has no possessions. It is just one without a second homogeneous mass of existence. If we may call so, we cannot even call it as a mass, but anyway, to describe, then it has no possessions and it has no parts. So those are the two types of destruction that we know. So it cannot happen. Okay. Na kashchit kartum arhati. So no one. And the reason Bhagwan is telling this to Arjun is because what is Arjun saying? That I will be killing them. That's what Bhagwan is saying, that you cannot kill that Atma. Atma you cannot kill. Body, yes, and he already said, now he's going to say again, body, yes, you are killing, but can you ever touch the Atma? No, you cannot. So you cannot cause the death of Atma. Later on, it will also come that, okay, maybe I cannot cause the death of Atma, but maybe Atma can commit suicide. That also Bhagwan will explain. That suicide also is not possible. Maybe nobody else will kill me, but I will kill myself. Atma cannot do that either. So we'll see that later. Now he explains what is unreal. First he said what is Sat. Now 18, what is Asat is being described. Antavant ime dehaha nityasyokta sharirinaha anashino aprameyasya tasmadyudyasva bharata. They have an end, it is said, these bodies of the embodied self. The self is eternal, indestructible, incomprehensible. Therefore fight, O Bharata. The number one thing here, that last part, therefore fight, O Bharata, brings in criticism of the Bhagavad Gita. There are some people who posit that Bhagwan is instigating Arjun to fight. Because here he says, Tasmad Yudhyasva Bharata. So this part we should understand first correctly. Bharata, I've told you, either belonging to the Bharata dynasty or Bha, reveling in light. Both words mean apply to Arjun. So he's saying, be ready, fight, O Bharata. And this brings in criticism. What we have to understand here is, we have to understand that Arjun, Bhagwan was not instigating Arjun to fight. Arjun was already standing at the battlefront, ready to fight. So that was his decision. Okay, it is not that he's sitting at home and he's saying, I'm not going to go fight the battle. He went to the battlefield, and then what happened was an obstacle came in that decision. The decision was already made by Arjun. It wasn't Bhagwan. Bhagwan had actually tried to avoid the war and he could not. So finally, the Pandavas had made the decision that war is the only thing to do. And so he was standing there ready to fight, except the obstacle came in the form of delusion. Maya, what we call, or Prakriti, she played her trick, and suddenly he got deluded into thinking that I am the body and they are the body, and now I'm killing my grandfather, and that became an obstacle. And all Bhagwan is trying to do is remove that obstacle. He is not telling Arjun to fight, because Arjun has made his decision to fight. That part has to be understood also clearly. It is like, when the clouds are covering the sun, we only remove the clouds, or the if I want to see the sun, the clouds only have to be removed. Obstacle has to be removed. The sun is already there. So Bhagwan is not telling him to fight. Okay. Now what he's saying is antavanta ime dehaha. These bodies have an antavanta is end. End is of two types. One end, of course, we know, we are very familiar with is the death of the body. So the body will end at death, and Bhagavan has already said that. We don't need Shastra to tell us also. It is our experience that the body dies. The mistake that some people make is they think that if the body dies, I die. That is a mistake. Because that I is identified with the body. They think that this is it. The body is it. So if this body dies, that means I'm dead. That is the wrong part. Body is going to die. But there is another end to this body as well, which is what happens to the realized masters. So what happens is, it's like I'm looking at the sky or I'm looking at the sunrise and I'm admiring it very much, very much. But then as I grow older and I read books and I hear to other people, then then I say, oh yeah, there is really no sky. So what happens is, even though I see the sky has ended for me. In my mind, it has ended. Why? Because I know it is not real. Same way with the sunrise or the sunset, I will admire it. No problem. I will go see it at different places, Mount Fuji, Angkor Wat, all those places which they are, very I climbed Mount Fuji and it was cloudy. I didn't even see that sunrise. I was so not happy. But anyway, so people do that, right? But in my mind, it is not there. The fact that the sun is moving, that thought is not there. So that movement of the sun has ended for me, even though I admire. So that is one end of the body, which happens to the realized master. That the body is there, the body is being used, the body is being nourished, fed, etc. But in his mind, he has falsified it, which means the body has ended for him. So that end is what we need to try and achieve. Death will come. We don't have to achieve death. Physical death, nobody has to try. It will come naturally in its own course. But what we can try as spiritual seekers is to end the body before it actually dies. And that should be the goal. Because after death, like Gurudev has said, after death, there is only birth. Please don't even think that. One friend told me, she said, I know after death, I'm not getting another body. And I just smiled in my mind. I said, okay, fine. There's absolutely no concept of Vedanta. So, that's fine. What can you say? No, be sure that unless you end the body while living, after death, you're getting another body. Then be sure. So, antavanta ime deha, this is the anta that we should be aspiring for before we actually physically die. Nitya syokta sharirinaha, this sharirina, this dehi, which was previously in previous verses, it was called as dehi. This is nitya, nitya beyond time, eternal. Okay. Anashina, of this indestructible, there is no destruction. We have already seen it. Again, this destruction can happen in two different ways. One destruction is where the body dies and then the body is put on the funeral pyre and the wood also is gone and the body is also gone and everything has become ashes. That is one sort of destruction. There is another sort of destruction that also can happen, which we see in stroke patients or paralysis, where the body is there, fully, if you see, you'll feel like the person is very normal, but they can't use their hand. So that destruction is also there. So that way also this destruction cannot happen to Atma, that Atma has no parts. So that destruction cannot happen. Okay, it'll get burnt and it'll go away. No, that also cannot happen. So that's why it is anashino. It is also aprameya. So this word is important. Aprameya is, prameya is that which is to be known. So object of knowledge. We have heard one word called pramana. I said we have to have the correct means. Prama and pramana are synonyms. So prama also means of knowledge. Pramana also means of knowledge. And aprameya, when we put prefix, it becomes opposite. So it is aprameya means it can never become an object of our knowledge. So the Purva Pakshis, here then they question this word. They say, okay, you are saying it's aprameya, then it's impossible. Then how will we know that Atma? You yourself are saying that it cannot be known. Then what is the point of the studies? If Bhagwan only is saying that this is unknowable, then what is the point of the study? So this we have to understand clearly as to why should I even study for something which can never be known. So the first thing that we have to understand is it can never be known as an object of our senses. Number one. Okay, and here senses includes the mind, intellect as well. So we can never know it as an object, like I know a tree, I know the sunrise or the sunset or the computer, or I read books. So objectively I can never know it. That is one meaning of apramiyasa. Then the other meaning is the scriptures. So then the question is asked, but you're saying read the scriptures and the scriptures tell us about Atma. You're saying that. So how can it be aprameya? Maybe reading scriptures will tell us about Atma then. Because you're telling us to read the scriptures. You're telling us to read Bhagavad Gita. You're telling us to read the Vedas, Upanishads, etc. And you're saying that they are giving information about Atma. Then how it is aprameya? It's not. By reading scriptures, I can understand it. No, what the scriptures are meant for is not to tell us that I exist. See, nobody has to tell me that I exist, or nobody has to tell you that you are existing. That's why I said, if I ask you a question, are you existing? You're going to say, of course I'm existing. In the morning when I wake up, do I need somebody else to tell me that, oh, you are Jaya, you're, so and so, you're this and this? Or do I go into the bathroom, look in the mirror and then say, oh, I'm Jaya? Or do I inherently know that I am? Inherent knowledge we have. Okay, why do I need the scriptures? Unfortunately, this inherent knowledge that I have is incorrect, because right now this inherent knowledge is telling me that I am the body, mind, intellect. That is where the scriptures come in there. That thing that I so naturally think that I am the body, mind, intellect, that is not correct. That thought is not correct. That is why the scriptures are there. That is why we have to read the scriptures. Most of us, there are people who have asked me, they said, if this is what the reality is in our childhood, why they just told us to light a lamp and that is where God is, and light a lamp and pray to him? Why did they tell us that? Because even probably they didn't know. And that is a start, that at least there is a God, light a lamp. At least it's better than saying there is no God, no need to light a lamp. So at least we started there, thank God, right? So now we have come to know. So now the scriptures, therefore it is aprameya through the senses. So don't even try to know God through the senses. And in bhakti, when that is a different shastra. So there Bhagwan will himself come and give the knowledge. So that's a totally different thing. But knowledge, when we say jnana or knowledge, that knowledge cannot be got through the senses. Okay, then how can it be gotten through the scriptures? No, scriptures are not telling you that you exist, because you know that. You know that. You don't need scriptures. You don't need a spiritual master to tell you that you're existing, but you think that you are the body, mind, intellect. Don't you? Don't you? That's why I get upset when the body gets sick. I get upset when the body is getting old, when the body can't see very well, when the body can't hear very well. Then I'm getting upset because I think I can't hear very well. I can't see very well. That I-ness that I have in the body has to be removed. And to remove that, the scriptures are there. And ultimately, we have to know it as our own self, Atma. It is the subject, it is not the object. It is the ultimate seer. It is the ultimate subject. So that's why as an object, it can never be known. So he says this sat is aprameya. This is the definition of sat. The body ends and end it before death. Not physically don't destroy it. You need the body, but know in your mind. That's why the correct means of knowledge have to be applied. The correct means of knowledge is thinking through the intellect that this body was not there. This body has changed. This body, cells in 1 hour, I think the body changes internally. Every 7 years, they say the skin goes and a new skin comes. Like medical science, you can see. So these things are changing. So don't consider this as real, but you need the body. You need the body, but in your mind, you end it. So it shouldn't affect you that much. That's the takeaway. Yes, but that doesn't mean you don't take care of it. So if there is any kind of medical problem, you definitely, I am the first one calling my doctor. That's not. But the point is that because the thought is, I need this body if I have to do any kind of service. If I have to speak, if I have to give a lecture, if I have to teach, I need the body. I cannot do it without the body. And that's why I keep this body healthy. Just like I keep the car very healthy, gassed up, tuned up, whatever, because otherwise I can't travel, otherwise I can't go anywhere. That way. Not because I want to beautify my body. People have to think that I'm young. Not those type of things. It's all mental. It's all mental. It's a shift in vision. Vedanta is a shift in vision. That's all. Okay. And that's why Bhagavan says you fight, because the bodies, they always have an end. Body, even if you don't kill, that body will naturally die. Like I told you, already Bhishma was 200 years old. Drona was 150. So how long are they going to live? They will die. Whether you kill them or not, they will die. And you're not touching the Atma. You cannot touch the Atma. You cannot. Even if you want, you cannot do it. So you fight. Okay? Because that was the delusion he was having now. He had that delusion that I am killing them. Now, these two verses, 19 and 20, are also important. They both are from Kathopanishad. In Kathopanishad, that this 20th verse comes before the 19th verse. Only there is a reversal. So 19th, let's read 19. Both of them are very important here. These are also the key verses. Ya enam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhau tau na vijanito nayam hanti na hanyate. He who takes the self to be the slayer and he who thinks he is slain, neither of these knows, he slays not, nor is he slain. Now, when you look at this, he who takes the self is with a capital S. So it's referring to Sat or Atma. And then he who thinks he is slain, he, H is again capital. So the reason Gurudev puts it in when it's a capital letter, because it's in the middle, grammatically it is not correct. You think, because it's in the middle of the sentence, but that he is referring to that Sat, to that Atma. Neither of these knows. He slays not. So he slays not. Atma slays not. Nor is he slain. Nor is Atma slain. So he's not talking about the body. He's talking about Atma. This is what is to be understood here. So the one who takes, this is what Bhagavan is saying, that if you think that you are killing, what is Arjun saying? How can I kill my own people? That is what he said. He says, if you, but then what is Bhagavan referring to when he says you? He's referring to that Atma in Arjun, the Dehi in the body. That is what Bhagavan is referring to here. So he says, if you think that you are killing, means your Atma is killing, Atma is not doing anything. What is being negated here is doership and enjoyership. That's why I told you, even Vivek Chodami class, the Atma never does anything. Sannidhi matrena, therefore it becomes very important that in the presence of Atma things happen, but the Atma doesn't do anything. That is what Bhagavan is telling Arjun here, that you as the Atma cannot kill them. You cannot kill Atma of theirs. Because now I think that there is an Atma in me and there is an Atma in you. So this maybe, even if you think that your Atma is different, and first of all, there is no difference in the two Atmas. There are no two Atmas, period. There is only one Atma. Okay. It is imagined to be in you and you are imagining that Atma to be in them. So even if you say that imagination, okay, your Atma is there and my Atma is there, I as the Atma cannot kill you as your Atma. Body, yes. Body has an end. There is no two ways about it. So this is what he says. He who takes the self to be the slayer, like takes the self to be slayer means it takes the thing I am doing, it takes on doership. This is what is meant here. The one who takes on, that's why we give the principles of karma yoga. That is the first principle of karma yoga, that don't think that you are doing it. Surrender, saying that I am able to do this in the presence of that Atma. That is that thought process. That's why this is the goal. This is the goal. How to work towards it is through karma yoga, which will come later. Because now we are at this highest standpoint. So from the highest standpoint, Atma is not doing anything at all. So the Atma is not killing. And okay, even if Atma, I mean, there's no way that Atma will decide who will it kill. That means what? He's killing himself. We're talking at the level of Atma. We're talking at the level of Sat. We are not talking at the level of body. Okay. So he who takes the self to be the slayer and you thinks he's slain. So I think if somebody is going to kill me, no, they're only going to destroy my body, but they cannot touch me. And me, M with a capital M. They cannot touch me. This is where I have to be established. This is what will take the fear away. So even if it's not if somebody else, I'm not, but suppose if I think that some disease is going to kill me, I have to make that clear distinction that, okay, if death is going to come, it will come to the body, and can I avoid it? No. Either it will come today or tomorrow or day after for sure. 100%. 100% is going to come. So I cannot avoid it. So why worry about it? Okay, am I really going to die totally, completely? Am I dying? The capital I? I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. Never. Never, ever. So if you get firmly established even in this thought, it'll reduce the fear. It'll reduce the fear. This is what. So he's slain. Neither of these knows. So one who thinks that I am killing. So you're thinking that you're killing them, right? So Janam hi katham hatva. Arjun asked the question, how can I kill? He says that means you don't know, because you as that Atma, as Sat, is not killing. Okay, if you think they're dying, no, they're also not dying. Their Atma is also cannot be touched. So neither of these knows. He slays not, nor is he slain, and therefore he is, H is capital. Okay, so what is being talked about is Sat, and what is being indicated is the non-doership. See, what the one thing here that we also have to understand, people have different ideas of God. That's what it is. So there are the Charvaks. We have talked about the Charvaks who think that body is only Atma. This is what the Charvak theory is, that what I see is real. What I don't see is not real. So they say that body was not there before birth. Okay, fine. So there was nothing before birth, and the body came into existence. So now, yes, the body is very, very real. And then the body will die, and there will be nothing in the future. There will be nothing after death. So the body is the only thing. So whatever is done by the body, and whatever that you want to do to enjoy, please do. Please do, because there's nothing before, there will be nothing after. So you please, so the body is considered as absolutely real. So they will definitely think that I am the one that is killing this person. That is their idea of Atma. Or then there is one people. And then there are other people who think that I, as the Atma, is the doer and the enjoyer. I do and I enjoy. That is also wrong. That is also wrong. So that's why this verse is given to tell us that there is no doership. There is nothing that I actually, as that Atma, am doing. But I do see a lot of actions coming out of me. Yes, in the presence of that Atma, things happen. Body gets enlivened, mind gets enlivened, and then the mind thinks and the body acts. Okay? All right. Any questions? Next verse is also, both these verses are important.
Jayaji.
Yes.
So this verse nicely conveys this idea that Atma is not the doer, is probably just an observer. And then we also see that Atma is something that that's basically the Sat, right? So primarily, like water, the idea of water, we are probably different jugs which hold the same water. Now, this is slightly not so. It's sort of a tangential question to the overall uh, discussion. When we say that we are Atma, the core swarup of ourselves is Atma, and we go from this body to the next body. Uh, and if Atma is not the doer, then why do we carry forward the karma phala, right? Because my karma in this birth affects the next birth, right? So where does this link come in? That's
That
sort of,
comes
yeah.
that comes in between the jivatma. That's why there is a three three levels. One is the level of the body, then the next level is the level of the jiva, and the third level is the level of atma. Right now what we are talking about is atma, but because I don't know, like Arjun, he doesn't know that he's atma. What is he thinking? I am going to kill. Same way, what do we think? I think I'm speaking. You think you're listening. So that thinker who is there in between, that PFT, who had asked, somebody had asked the question, Dashrath had asked that, right? What is this PFT? Perceiver, feeler, thinker, which is there in the chart, is that Jivatma. And that Jivatma thinks that he has done the actions. That is incorrect, but nevertheless he thinks. So because he thinks that he has done the action, action is giving result, then that result has to also be experienced by that Jivatma, and therefore that Jivatma will travel and go. That verse is also going to come.
Okay.
Vasansi jirnani yatha vihaya.
Okay.
That verse will come too.
Sure. Thank you.
Because Atma, yeah, we'll talk about Atma and Jivatma over there again. So right now understand that Atma, that position can never be compromised, because that is said by Upanishads. Vedas say that Atma doesn't do anything. So that position can never be compromised. But we do see so much action coming out. We do see actions, right? And we think they're all real. So that is there. But when you apply this knowledge, that's why we first explain Sat and Asat by the correct means of knowledge. You think by the correct means of knowledge, then you come to know.
Thank you.
Okay?
Sure.
All right. So let's take the next verse. Na jayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuyah ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranah na hanyate hanyamane sharire. He is not born, nor does he ever die. This he is referring to Sat or Atma. After having been, he again ceases not to be. Unborn, eternal, changeless, and ancient, he is not killed when the body is killed. All right. So, na jayate, na mriyate. The 6 modifications that the body undergoes is asti, coming into existence, in the fetus coming into existence in the womb. Then there is birth, jayate, asti, jayate. Then there is change, asti, jayate, vardhate, grows, pariniyate, changes, kshiyate, disease, decays, and mriyate, dies. These are the 6 modifications that are constantly happening in matter. And by matter, we mean body. And we don't need Shastra to tell us, scriptures to tell us. We know that there is a fetus in existence in the womb, and then it gets birth, and then the baby grows, we know, grows, and then it changes also, and then it gets disease also. The body gets diseased, and finally it dies. Now, growth and change I had explained, but some of you, if you were not there in the other class, so there is growth and there is change. And what is the difference? In growth there is an addition of cells, in change there is no addition of cells. So the example that the scriptures give is of the tomato. The tomato, if you look at it, the small tomato becomes big, but it remains green, and when it reaches its full size, then it changes from green to red. It doesn't, like as it is growing, it doesn't become red, it remains green. Or in our case, hair is growing, but then hair goes gray at one point. So the hair going gray is change, and then growing is growing. It is increasing in length. So that is the difference between change and growth. Other, I don't have to explain. Now, here what Bhagwan has denied is na jayate na mriyate. The na goes with both. Na jayate mriyate means na jayate na mriyate. It doesn't get born, it doesn't get dead, it doesn't die. So when the two end, the first one, because birth, asti, and then birth is negated, death is negated, all the in between modifications are automatically negated. That is what is to be understood. Now, if you want to understand this logically, would you like to understand this logically, or are you guys okay with faith? Bhagavan said. See, there is a logical explanation also. In Vedanta Shastra, they talk about 3 levels of understanding. One is Shruti, one is Yukti, and then one is Anubhuti. So Shruti is what Shruti is saying. So Upanishads are saying, or Bhagavad Gita is saying, that is Shruti, that is said. It is said, and that's it. There's no compromise there. Then Yukti is logic. So anything that Shruti says, you can validate it by logic. Logic must be able to validate it. And then whatever logically you understand, you must also be able to experience it. So these are the 3 levels. Now here, if you go to see this Asti Jayate, we don't really need Shruti also. It is our experience that this has happened to the body. Hasn't it? I was born, then I grew, then I changed, then disease is coming now, old age, and there will be death. So we don't need. The problem is that I think that this is me. All this is happening to me. That is where the problem is. When I think that I was born, that is wrong. I grew, I am diseased, I am going to die. That is wrong. So what the understanding should be is, this body was born, this body grew, this body changed, this body is going to die. If I keep saying this body is this, I'm okay, I'm fine. I've separated myself from the body. That's why we need scriptures. Okay, now if you want to understand this logically also, try and understand birth and death. Let's understand birth and death. What is birth? What is death? So there is something known as prior non-existence, and there is also something known as posterior non-existence. Okay, pragabhav, technically it is called pragabhav, and pradvamsa abhav. So pragabhav is before birth. So let me give you an example. Right now, you don't see anything, right? You see me, but you don't see a stapler. Okay, so there is a prior absence of stapler. Now I show you the stapler. So now you see the stapler. Previously, see, now you were not seeing it. Now you're seeing it, and now you don't see it again. So now what is said is, you were there to verify, to vouch for that there was no stapler. Then the stapler came into being, and now there is no stapler. So when you can validate prior absence, birth is validated at that point. The mother or the doctor says that this child was not there yesterday, and now today this child has come into the world. There is a living being, there is a living conscious being who is validating the absence, the prior absence of that baby. It may be the mother, it's the parents, or it's the doctor delivering, or the hospital nurses, or whatever. There is a prior absence which is verified by a living being, and then this baby has come into this world, is being seen, and then that same authority is validating birth has happened. Do you get this point? Or some people are confused? Okay, so prior absence has to be validated before birth can be confirmed. Somebody has to validate that yesterday this child was not there. Okay, and it is there today. Now, with death, posterior absence has to be confirmed. How do you know that this thing has died? Whatever it is. How do you know that this stapler is not there now? Because you are there to validate that, no, this stapler is not there. So in the case of death, posterior absence has to be validated. That's why, you know, in murder cases, if you see this, body was not found. So they don't take it as death. Court is asking, first thing they ask is, where is the body? So if the body is not found, that means that person could be living somewhere else. So they cannot prosecute anybody without a body. That's why when they kill some people, they try to destroy the body first. That if the body is not found, or if the weapon is not found, posterior absence, somebody has to validate to say that there has been death. Now, let's see with Sat. Okay, what is Sat? Sat is that existence consciousness principle. Now, if we say that at this given point in time, Sat was born, that means what? Existence was born, consciousness was born at this point, whatever it is, 10:07. What about 10 o'clock then? Who is there to validate that that existence was not there at 10 o'clock? If I say that existence is born at this moment, who is there to validate the prior absence? Because existence was not there. Existence came into existence at this moment. Do you get this point? Or am I going too deep? If you don't get this point also now, don't worry. There's, you know, this is, it's technical explanation, so you don't have to worry about it. You can just, you know, Bhagwan is saying that there is no birth for Sat. Because why? Because already we don't need to give technical explanation in Bhagavad Gita. Because as we go study more and more and more, then we get all these technical explanations. If you see just the definition of Sat, Sat does not change in the 3 periods of time. That itself should be enough to tell you that there hasn't been birth. Because there also we told you that Asat is, it was not, this body was not available to me before birth. Right? That's why matter is born and matter will end. Sat is not born, and because it is not born, it will never end. Okay? All right. So I won't go much any further in that. Anyway, na jayate na briyate. So when 2 end modifications are negated, all the middle modifications are negated as well. Nayam bhutva abhavita vana bhuyaha. So after having been means what? He's actually there eternally, not that at one point in time he came into being. It's not like that. He again ceases not to, he never ends. Ceases is end. So he's there eternally. And that's why ajaha, once again, a repetition of na jayate. Aja, ja born, aja not born, is never born. Nityaha beyond time, eternal. Okay, this is a description of Sat. This is a description of Sat. Shashvat, there are 2 words here, Shashvata and Puranaha. So Shashvata and Nitya, they seem similar. Shashvata is what? Eternal. Nitya is what? Eternal. But Nitya should be taken as beyond time, and Shashvata should be taken as taking care of change. That means there is no change. So the argument might be there, okay, Sat is there, but maybe within itself it changes. Because okay, it's not born, we agree, it doesn't die, okay, agreed, but maybe it is changing within itself. No, that's why Shashvata word is used. And Purana is used to negate growth. Okay, maybe this Sat grows within itself. So Purana is used for that reason. And Purana, the word Purana means Pura api Nava. Pura api Nava means ancient yet new. Ancient yet new, how it can be? So the most closest example that I can give you is of this present moment. So the present moment right now that we have, This moment was available to us since when? Since we were born. Every time, there also there was a present moment. When I grew, every day of my life, I had this present moment. So it is very Purana, it's very old, it's very ancient. Yet, every time I get a new moment, it's something new. I can do something else with it. I can do something with it. Pura api nava. We'll continue with it next time. Any questions? Are you finding this very deep? Yes, Shivram? Yeah.
Jayaji, when you were talking about the body not being there, it's just coming and going. It's just an appearance. So we also talk about the three levels of body, right, Jayaji? We talk about the Sukshma Sharira, the Karana, and the Stula Sharira, right? The Shariras are again physical, the both Sukshma and Stula. So are both, I know it's a very fundamental question and I probably understand the answer, but I still want to validate it from you. Does the Sukshma Sharira also get obliterated and does it also get recreated?
Sukshma Sharira, for an ignorant person, uh, separates. What happens at death is Sukshma Sharira separates. But for a realized master, that Sukshma Sharira is not carrying any baggage of vasanas. That is the difference. So when the Sukshma Sharira doesn't carry a baggage, it is very pure, means it is the pure Atma. It leaves through the Brahma Randhra, it is said.
Okay, okay.
Realized masters pranas go through the top of the head and they merge with Atma. That's the reason that realized master doesn't get another body.
Oh, okay.
Whereas for an ignorant person who is still that Jivatma that we talked about, and we will be talking about it more in a later verse, that Jivatma which is still carrying the baggage of vasanas. There are desires which have not been fulfilled. There are desires, there are things, the person thinks I have to do this, I have to still do that, and then he dies. Then depending on what yoni, there are the upper part of the body and the lower part of the body where the pranas can leave. So depending on what type of actions or thoughts he has harbored, and that comes in this sattva, rajas and tamas then. So if it is a rajasic thought, then he will leave through the upper part of the body, he will go into the same level. So if it's a human, he'll go to human. But if it goes from the lower, the pranas leave from the lower part of the body, he will go into lower yonis.
Uh-huh.
That's a different, yeah.
Thank you, Jay.
Yeah. Here it is, I told you, up to verse 30, it is only Sat that Bhagavan is talking about. This is the highest absolute standpoint. So absolute standpoint doesn't posit Sukshma Sharira. There is nothing. There is nothing. That's why. But he will come down. It's Bhagavan, so after verse 30, 31, he will come right to the bottom level. And that way, then you will understand it very clearly because it is totally at our level that Bhagavan is talking. Okay.